Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories that inspire you. My guest today is a restaurateur who I've known for over 18 years. He's been serving up award-winning burgers, bourbon, and beer, committed to sourcing the freshest ingredients in the community. Please welcome my friend and owner of the Hangry Bison, Joe Liguori. What's going on, Joe?
Hey, Biggie.
I can't believe, man, it's been forever. I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me. I know you've been a busy man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Good to reconnect with you. You know, I've been following you, seeing the Deli Fresh Threads. Real excited. Own a couple shirts myself, so
yeah,
good to
man.
Good to connect with you and talk.
So I always like to ask the question: what's your go-to lunch or sandwich?
Oh man, my go-to lunch or sandwich. Well, if I have the time and I can make it out there, break away from my place, I go to Stasio's. First of all, you get anything there. It's unbelievable, you know. But my go-to at Stasio's would be the porchetta with broccoli rabe and the long hots. Provolone cheese, outstanding. So that's my go-to.
Love that.
I mean, you know, I don't know if you've been, but everything on the menu, you can't go wrong.
No, it is. So, you know, I probably, if I kept tabs, that may be the number one place that people tell me when I ask locals what's their go-to lunch or sandwich. So, well, yeah, definitely not. Maybe they do a good job, but you obviously know that. What about at Hangry Bison? What's the go-to lunch or sandwich at Hangry Bison?
And for a first timer to come in, I'm often refer them to do the build your own burger on the backside. Just have some fun, get creative. That's kind of how we got started. Pick your own protein, pick your bun, pick your toppings, and just as much or as little. But there's a special place. I have a burger on the menu called the Trashly. And if you remember, my wife's Ashley. So a little play on words, something we do at the Hangry Bison.
Yes.
You know, one of my favorite burgers. She, you know, when I pitched her the idea, she didn't, you know, she wanted to do fish. She eats chicken. She eats real clean veggies, fish, and never like you know, what the Trashly is, and it's sloppy and delicious as it should be. It's a short rib burger, beer cheese, fried onion straws, bacon, Texas toast. I mean, it's delicious. So yeah, that would be the come in, get the Trashly.
No, I think it's hilarious that she did that, because when I was looking at the menu and I saw that and I knew your wife's name, and I was like, wow, I'm like, this is her favorite burger. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, what a great burger. So it's hilarious that she eats so clean. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. So before we talk Hangry Bison. Oh, really?
No, never. She's never had it. It's too unhealthy. So, but it's worth it.
That's hilarious.
Worth the calories.
So before we talk more Hangry Bison, I want to go way back, because I said I've known you for a while, and I was thinking about this during my research, and you and I have known each other for probably over 25 years, which is insane to me. But what I want to talk about, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because when I met you, you were not doing restaurant stuff. Like, you were not in the restaurant business. Heck, I remember you were very, very like against it, did not want to do it, to the point where I think when you did start thinking of doing entrepreneurial stuff, you actually wanted to do an indoor soccer spot, which I still think is amazing. And you were looking at warehouse spots, which I still think is an amazing idea. But I want to talk a little bit about, like, what made you finally decide to get into, and obviously you can kind of tell a little bit of your background of like why you were kind of anti doing the restaurant, but what made you decide to actually go into pizza and do Pizzeria Valdiano?
Yeah, man. So you went way back, and that's at the beginning. And I can't believe you remembered the whole indoor soccer idea, which I should have opened an indoor soccer center actually. But no, all seriousness, I was looking into doing. I really wanted to do an indoor soccer, and I was meeting with various clients, and you were one of them. And as you remember, I was in sales at the time, you know, first job out of college. And one of my clients, I was sharing with him the idea, and he told me to check out this new development called Baldwin Park, that it was the old naval base. And he said perhaps there's an old airplane hangar or something, a building that is appropriate for a soccer field, like an indoor soccer field, because I was having a hard time finding just the right building to explore that dream. Um, and I, doing some research, checking out Baldwin Park, and I mean, my background. I grew up in the restaurant business, and I probably should have started with that. But and that kind of leads into why I was so against being in the restaurant business. So just a piece there is, to kind of backtrack and share that. My parents immigrated here to this country, both of them from Italy, and they didn't have options beyond restaurant business. So I was, born and raised in the restaurant business. That's all I knew growing up. That's all my family knew. My aunts, my uncles, everybody did restaurants. And, it was always a dream of my parents and aunts and uncles, and that none of the kids were going to do restaurants. We were going to do the American dream. We were going to get a college, get a real job. We called it a real job, non-restaurant. So, so that was my trajectory, not restaurants, because the hours and the commitment, and we could talk forever about, what's involved in committing your life to running and owning and opening a successful restaurant. But so at the time that we met and chatting about this, I was dead set on not doing a restaurant. Well, I explored Baldwin Park to check it out, see if there was any kind of opportunity, an old building that was left, and they were demoing the naval base. And the more I looked into it and saw the community and the town center, that restaurant instinct in me kind of just caught fire. And I saw it and looked at it, and this would be a great spot for a restaurant, and kind of just changed courses and started pursuing that idea. Wasn't met with, I guess, enthusiasm from my father specifically. I remember him talking about my job, and I had vacation time and health insurance, and he's like, you get vacation time. They pay you to go on vacation. This is unbelievable, and he just couldn't wrap his head around why I would want to stop doing that to own a restaurant and work Mother's Day and work Valentine's and all the days that we entertain people in the restaurant business, to give up that freedom that I had at that time. But yeah, I mean, it's Baldwin's Park, the discovery of Baldwin Park kind of reignited that fire. I mean, if you back up to when I was a kid, I love the business. I love making pizzas in particular. I mean, I'm still tell people, even though I own burger concepts now and don't own Valdiano anymore. I sold to my sister, but man, I'm a pizza man. People have, that's my thing. That's who I am. And so as a kid, literally growing up, I was going to be either like an accountant or a pizza man. Like that was my two, so if I went to college and stuff, I was going to hopefully become an accountant. If not, then, I really preferred being a pizza man. And so that instinct kind of, I think, I think it was that time of when I was working at the company I worked for at the time in IT consulting, that I really realized I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be my own boss. And it started with the idea of doing the indoor soccer center, but I felt like my background and strength was in restaurants. And I just, if I'm going to do something, let me do something that I think I have the most confidence in doing and the best experience, and just jump right in. And got lucky. And there's man, we could talk for 5 hours here about how I got started, and God had a hand in a lot of things, and the way things worked out for me just right.
What I think is great about this, and we'll kind of segue on there, is like, so obviously you started Pizzeria Valdiano, your very first location, which was very, very intelligent, and you had the idea of it was, hey, I'm going to find places that are near movie theaters. There was a great little spot that opened in Winter Park Village, where the first Pizzeria Valdiano was open, and then you basically started opening up a bunch, and we'll talk about you've opened in your time frame over 10 restaurants and 4 Hangry Bisons, but you opened that one first. And the reason I think to me it's significant is because literally across the street from it in 2018, you had the idea to start the Hangry Bison. So I kind of want to know where that idea came from, where you kind of were like, hey, I don't want to do pizza anymore, Italian food. I want to do burgers, bourbon, and beer. Like, tell me where that kind of idea came from, and then how that opportunity came and where it's come from.
Yeah, man. So my first location, so the idea to jump in with restaurants again started with me discovering Baldwin Park and what was on the horizon. And at the time, that project was still in like demo construction phase. Like it wasn't an immediate opportunity to open a restaurant. There wasn't a building ready. They were still doing the infrastructure for the neighborhood. But now I'm thinking, my brain's going, hey, let me seek this out, that out, and I was casually looking at other opportunities. Um, and in the meantime, actually, the people at Baldwin Park that I reached out to, they did want to see a business plan and a concept. So I took basically what I learned in college. I was only 20, the time I was probably 23. And I put out together a business plan, put it on paper, sent it to them, and they loved it. And obviously made myself sound more experienced and more, had more access to finances and all this other stuff that made me sound great. But anyway, so this is important because I had the business plan on the side. I just literally submitted to Baldwin Park. We're in negotiations for a lease potentially at this point. I took, at the time, my girlfriend, Ashley, who's now my wife, to Winter Park Village, to Brio at the time for dinner. Okay, so we're just dating at this time. And this is the first time I see Winter Park Village because I'm a UCF guy. I was east side of town. We don't venture out that way, and I
Far.
worked and lived out there. So that was like the other side of the world, Winter Park Village. But I wanted to go to a nice place with this girl that I liked. So, and it worked out with her, by the way. But I saw this plaza and I was at Brio and it was busy. And I'm like, man, this place is great. There's people. I was like, I can open a little pastry shop. There was a spot right next to Brio that had a for lease sign. And I'm like, man, I could do something with this. I could do a coffee shop, pastry shop, something, anything, and that's, I'm starting to go. And I was like, I called the number the next day. And I talked to a lady named Barbara Carnes. I'll never forget this because at the time, again, I'm still trying to win over the Baldwin Park people, but got on the phone with Barbara Carnes about this potential plaza. And Barbara says to me, yeah, you sound, like you have some ideas. We had a tenant pull a midnight move last week. It was the Philly Connection cheesesteak shop next to the theater. And she's like, would you be interested in that space instead? And I told her on the phone, I'll take it. And by the way, I have a business plan I want to send you. And literally, the next day, that day, I emailed her the business plan, modified it, obviously. She took a chance on me, gave me the lease. And even though Baldwin Park had the wheels going at the beginning, I made that call. I saw a phone number, and there's a, we can probably get 10 podcasts about this, about just taking that leap, having the guts to make that phone call. Had I not made that phone call, Barbara, I would have never had that opportunity. And who knows what would have happened with Baldwin Park? That's another part of the story. But the Winter Park Village, where I started, where it all began for me, which gave me credibility, which was a second generation restaurant space that I turned into a pizzeria, which meant my initial investment was approachable, right? And being a young guy with limited access to cash and resources, that was important. And I was able to establish that place, work like an animal for a long time, didn't take a day off, made less money than I did working at the previous place where we met. Didn't match my salary till I was in my third year of owning my own business from my job right out of college where I was making more money. But I had a vision and it had purpose and got things rolling. And then, the rest, we'll talk about that some more, but that's where it started. And I have a special place in my heart for Winter Park Village, specifically Valdiano. Like, I mentioned earlier, I recently sold it to my sister. And if you asked me a couple of years ago, Joe, what would you do? Would you give up Valdiano or Ricciardi's or the Hangry Bison, I would have said everything but Valdiano. Like that was like my where it began. Just the nostalgia of it. That's and as I've obviously things have changed and opportunities presented themselves, I made a decision to change direction, and it brought me a lot of satisfaction to be able to involve my sister and a longtime employee who's worked for me for like 15 years. He's her partner there, so we involved Mike um, as a partner with my sister, and they were doing fantastic. God bless them. So I'm happy with
Yeah.
the way things worked out.
How did the idea come from in 2018 for you guys to be like, hey, I want to do the Hangry Bison? Like, how did that? Because it's like literally right across the street, so like it made sense when you did it. But I've always been curious, like, what triggered you to be like, hey, I want to do burgers, bourbon, beer, and everything that the Hangry Bison offers.
Yeah. So the vision. So a couple of things. We were never supposed to be across the street. It just worked out that way, and I'll share that story in a second. But being a restaurant guy, and I'm sure some other, other friends that you have in the business, they probably share the same thing. Man, I got all kinds of ideas. I got personally, I got an idea for a Latin concept I'd love to do, or a Caribbean themed, and just some cool, fun, so much potential. Um, and this bourbon bar, craft beer, craft cocktail, um, burger concept was one of my many ideas. And I guess two things happened. And it's interesting. I had a restaurant in the Villages called Ricciardi's Italian Table. So fast forward after a couple
Delicious.
of so this is how the Hangry Bison came about. So after I opened a few Valdianos, I had one in Lakeland. We were on I Drive, Waterford. I had an opportunity to open a full service Italian restaurant in the Villages. We called it Ricciardi's Italian Table. It was a high end. I wish I had this place in Orlando. It was beautiful. It was well run. Um, it was just a challenging market. I love the Villages, great people, great market. Had some challenges because with people, period. I mean, just and Italian food is hard, especially full service scratch cooking Italian food is hard. It's hard to staff. It's hard to execute people's expectations. You know, so what happened to me was I can pinpoint the exact moment where I knew that I needed to pivot. At Ricciardi's, I ran into some challenges with customers. One customer in particular, one day, they had a chicken francese. And if you know what a chicken francese is, it's an egg battered chicken breast sauteed, lemon butter white wine sauce, delicious. It's like a French toast is egg battered. The chicken's egg battered. So there you got the francese, the French kind of influence in the description. So that's a proper chicken francese. And it's an Italian American thing. We had a guest one day that said to me, called me over, and said that this wasn't a chicken francese. And I said, ma'am, no, you have a chicken francese. I mean, is it something wrong? She's like, no, this is not a chicken francese. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sorry, I'll get you whatever you want, but that's a chicken francese. And I said, well, where have you gone? Where are you from? That's like, it's differently. She's like, I'm from Idaho. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how they make a chicken francese in Idaho, but I have Rosario from Sicily in the kitchen. And this is how we make a chicken francese. I'll make you whatever you want to make you happy. But, and it was the moment of learning Italian food. People have their opinion about what things should be, how it should be. Rosario was coming from Orlando to the Villages every day, driving. He was good, really good. And I was fortunate to have him out there in the Villages because they don't have any, at the time, scratch cooking Italian restaurants. And I couldn't just hire somebody from any place. I couldn't hire from a Chili's and put them to saute or pull them from a chain restaurant. They had to know what they were doing the right way. So it was a dawning moment of, man, I never have a problem with my pizza. the pizza, people pick onions, mushrooms. If they don't like mushrooms, but they put mushrooms on the pizza, that's their fault. But they built the pizza to what they like, and it's their expectations are met. So that's how I got the idea. What can I do that I can put the control in the guest hands to build their meal the way they want it, to their taste, to their diet, to their preference. So like I did pizza, I could do burgers was one thing that came to mind. I did protein, pick your topping, pick your bun, pick your side, put as much or as little as you want. And that was kind of how the burger concept jumped to the top. The second part of that was staffing. And you could talk to any, I mentioned already about how it was so hard for me to hire scratch cooking, classically trained chefs. But I had no problem hiring people that could man a grill, work the fryer, work the oven. They had to know what they're doing, my kitchen team, but they don't have to have. So I could hire somebody from a Steak and Shake for the Hangry Bison and train them our way. I could hire them from a Denny's. I could hire them from a Subway even and teach them. But the saute side, and so I hope your audience has a new appreciation for these scratch kitchen Italian restaurants and French and Indian and all of these great restaurants we have in town. The amount of how hard it is, because it's not people, they're not just spitting out talent everywhere out of the schools. You really gotta invest time into training some of these scratch cooking restaurants. So, but anyway, so that's when the kind of caught fire a little bit. Okay, the second part of the story, and I know I'm going long, man, but this is a long story.
No, I love this, dude. I love this.
So at the time I was 40 years old, okay? And I'm playing over 40 soccer, which I still play now, okay? And I broke my left leg playing soccer, 40 years old, okay? And my wife is, she's always giving me a hard time about playing because I'm always hurt. I'm always twisting an ankle, this and that. And she's like, you're going to kill yourself. And so anyways, but I was so busy when I broke my leg. I was running the Valdianos. I was going to the villages. I even had an apartment up in the villages to save me time. So some nights I'd stay there. Like it was, trying to raise a family. Like I was all over, going to Lakeland. I had the pizzeria in Lakeland also. And you know what it did? I tried to go to the restaurant with my crutches. I had a cast up to my thigh. I broke my leg in two places, near my knee and near my ankle. And it was 12 weeks. I was trying to go to the restaurant, trying to be helpful, crutching around in the dining room. It wasn't a good look. I mean, it's an elevated, nice Italian restaurant. You hear the clanking. I tried to go in the kitchen, help on Expo. I'm with my crutches. I'm in the way. What it did was it forced me to stop and just figure out a way that you don't have your hands in everything, which I'm a firm believer in. I am, and I was, but I still am. But it was like God told me to stop and slow down. And the minute I stopped, and I'm used to being busy 24/7, I couldn't shake it. My mind was going. This concept caught fire. I was obsessed with trying to find a spot. I love this burger idea. I could do this, and it just started going. And I had the confidence to open a different concept. People ask me that all the time, like, what made you go from pizza to Italian full service? I think running restaurants is running restaurants, taking good care of people, showing them, giving them a wonderful experience, that human interaction, making them feel special. We could change the music, the menu. There's a lot we could change, but service is service. So I can open a sushi place. Not that I'm going to, no breaking news, but if I have the confidence to do something like that. So that's kind of what allowed me to, hey, here's the burger concept. Now let me build on this. What else can I do? Bourbon, craft beer, craft cocktails. Let me build it to my kind of place. It's a socially driven concept, right? People are coming not only to have a great meal, they're coming to have a great time, engage with friends. Dietary matters are important to people. They can build their own meal. You gluten-free, you want a lettuce wrap, you want your burger over a bed of greens. So it hit a number of areas: the labor, the consumer expectation, the cool factor. So I loved it. I loved the idea. And I started looking into Ivanhoe. That was plan A, but the timeline was too long for that plaza. So I got introduced to where the Gnarly Barley is now, the freestanding building across from the lake,
Yep.
and trying to do a deal with the building owner at the time. And the concept, I'm on fire. I love the concept. I'm starting to build the menu. I'm negotiating with the building owner, and without divulging too much, we just couldn't come to terms. And it was something that was kind of simple. It really shouldn't have been a deal breaker at the time. But I kind of had this feeling. I called the owner and I said, listen, we can't even get through the planning stage and signing a lease. I can't sign a 10-year lease with you if we can't get along now. I can imagine when we're having real challenges, landlord tenant, that this is going to be a happy marriage. So I got to walk away. And I went to my pizza place in Winter Park Village, the original Valdiano. And I'm mad as can be. I'm frustrated because I could taste it. I wanted to open this place. I love the spot. I still love that area. And I think Gnarly Barley's done a fantastic job there. They're incredible, and love that group of guys. But that was, personally, selfishly, I had a vision for it. And I had to start from scratch. And that idea was tough to swallow. So I'm questioning myself. I'm sitting in front of my pizza place and I'm wondering, man, am I being too stubborn? Maybe it's me. Maybe I need to lighten up and get this deal done. And Anthony, no joke, I'm sitting there and I'm looking across from my restaurant and I'm looking at what at the time was the Firefly restaurant. And I'm like, man, I could transform that place. I could do something really cool there. So I go to the tenant directory and I reached out to the owners blindly, sent her an email. And I said, hey, my name is Joe. I'm your neighbor in Winter Park Village. I own Pizzeria Valdiano. Want to know if maybe I can connect with you, chat on the phone. And real kind of abruptly, like I was soliciting business or something, she replies to me, what do you want? Like not even. And so I just reached back out to her again via email, like, hey, I just love to chat with you. I'm in the restaurant business. I know how it is. Some days you love it. Some days you want to burn it down. You have one of those days that you want to burn it down. Before you do that, please give me a call. I'd love to talk to you about maybe taking over your lease or buying your restaurant. We ended up connecting on the phone. She was very curious about what I knew, who I talked to. And I said, no, it's literally that. I told her my whole story, what happened. I want to open this concept. I think I can do something magical there. But hey, in a year, 2 years, whatever happens, please hold on to my phone number. And about 3 hours later, she calls me back and tells me that they're on the market, that they're for sale. And she wanted to introduce me to her broker. And that's kind of how it started. Negotiating a deal right there. So it was a special moment for me because it was like, and again, God told me to slow down. God told me, he put me full circle back to where it began, back where I started again. And again, I could taste it. My desire was to open in Ivanhoe. Like that was where we were supposed to be, right? And it just ended up there, and it couldn't have worked out more beautifully because I was able to open the Hangry Bison, do the remodel, reopen, and go back and forth easily to the restaurant. From the Valdiano to the Hangry Bison.
What I think is impressive is, and the theme I've noticed is here, you've taken the chance to make the call, to do the reach out, which I think is the one big thing that a lot of people don't do. And you've done it now on both concepts or both ideas. Both of them have been because you've taken that chance to actually reach out to someone, make the call. And I think that's always the big one. And like I mentioned before, you've opened 10 restaurants. You have 4 Hangry Bisons, one in
The
with
fourth
one
is
opening up in Bonita Springs. You got 4. You
that's
have
the
Winter
fourth.
Garden, Winter Park, Winter Garden, Lake Mary, and now and soon to be Bonita Springs, right?
Yes, correct.
What do you think has been this, and you've kind of mentioned it, but I'm just kind of curious, what do you think has been your recipe for success?
Oh man, I surrounded myself with good people. I've always, I'm a restaurant guy. Like people look at me and my story is I started as a busboy and a dishwasher and then a saute guy and a kitchen guy, a pizza guy, and then I went to the dining room. So, I mean, I understand the business, and I've been fortunate to growing up in the business see everything that my father and my uncles and aunts that they worked so hard and they've done a lot of right things and they also did a lot of wrong things. And I was fortunate to have that environment where I was able to pay attention and learn and see what they did right, don't duplicate the mistakes they made, and then add my own savvy to it. I had a small team and I was engaged with my staff on a day-to-day basis. I had a statistic, I didn't lose an employee in over a year. I was going from place to place. I just had a personal relationship with everybody. I worked next to them, and I was able to get their best too. They gave me their best because they believed in me, believed in the brand, and um, and they made it happen. I couldn't do the multiple restaurants, multiple sites unless we they had their faith in me, um, and my trust in them. They make it happen, and it's a respect and they get it because my credibility comes from a place where I was in their shoes and I've done it. So I'm my expectations are high because I know they can if they can do better. But I'm also sympathetic in the sense of man, I know how hard it is when you're getting crushed on the grill and you got a million burgers to make and everyone's screaming at you and it's a million degrees. Uh, so there's that sympathy and compassion component to it. So I look at it as I'm a they're my team. I'm their leader. I'm the captain of the team, and they look for me for leadership and direction. And fortunately, I've been able to build a strong team and got some really great supporting members of my team that allow me to do what we do. And once I felt that I was confident in my base at Winter Park and then Winter Garden and now Lake Mary, that I can take the leap and go do that next door. So that's kind of been, it's a kind of a long answer for you, but there are many layers to that.
What do you think has been your favorite part of this journey?
The restaurant business, man, there's a lot there. One thing was, and I have a wonderful relationship with my father. I really do. And I wanted to, and I knew he believed in me from the beginning. He always had. In fact, it's a long story, but he ended up becoming my partner as I grew the Valdiano concept. But one thing was I was determined to do better, to not prove him wrong, but do better than he did, right? I mean, my parents were successful restaurateurs, um, but I also wanted to make sure I did it the right way and grew and was able to establish a life with my family outside of restaurants. Um, and that's something I think that we had growing up in my house. I didn't see my father a whole lot, my parents. They were busy at the restaurants. And that's kind of why I grew up in the restaurant, because if I wanted to see them, I had to go to the restaurant. And my cousins all have the same story. I mentioned Stasi's family, my cousin Alan, Deanna, and Michael. They are successful restaurateurs now, but grew up the same way, working hard as kids. And that's how we got to see the family. So um, for me, when I was able to get to a place where I could take Sundays off and be with the family, and then take Mother's Day off, and all those benchmarks that I talked about earlier, taking vacations and things we didn't get to do. That was a moment for me of like, hey, I'm able to be present with my kids, raise a family, and also manage a successful business on the side. Um, Restaurant is so hands-on. It requires so much attention. You got to be on top of every single detail, and it's hard to do that if you're not in the building. So it takes that team of people around you to execute your vision, to be an extension of me. And I attribute my success to that, and that I've been able to build that network of support to keep us growing and keep us successful. And I hope to continue to build on it.
I know you mentioned your favorite part of the journey.
You asked me you asked me earlier about like my greatest I don't know if it was my greatest accomplishment or what, and I kind of went off. And if you haven't noticed, if I start talking about something, I'm just going to go and just it
Yeah,
may start out this direction, it's going to go a different
it's
way. But
fine.
to answer that question, hey, my favorite thing for me, I take this business so personal. And I remember when I had the pizzeria, we used to have a young lady and her father, and every Tuesday night was their movie night. Okay, and she would always come with her dad, just her and her dad, have pizza every Tuesday night, right? And you get to know your customers, and especially people that become regulars, and that's part of their routine, right? Well, fast forward, I've had a lot of first dates. I've had a lot of things happen there. And one thing in particular is I'll get an email or a phone call, or somebody will come in that's now, you know, 30 years old, right? And they have their children with them. They're visiting their parents, and they take their kids because they're like, yeah, when I was, you know, 12, my parents used to take me here all the time for pizza. And now I'm visiting my parents, and I want to take my kids to the pizza place I used to go to. And that resonates, that I am a small part of their story. I mean, you think about it. It's 20, we just passed our 24, Valdiano will be open 24 years next month. So there's people probably that are fans of yours and listen to your podcast. I weren't even born when I opened that pizza place. And so there's a lot of life happening between teenagers. I mean, right next to Regal Cinemas, there were kids going to the movies and coming in for slices. It became the hangout. Winter Park High School. We have a local family that's connected to the NBA. I remember those kids coming in getting pizza with their dad when he was coaching. Now he was, like just, man, it was a little kid coming to my pizza place. And, I share that story. And it's just amazing. And just seeing that and seeing the growth, and seeing people again years later and hearing their stories, or former employees. And it's just, you impact so many people that you don't even realize. And then it's just nice to get reminded about it again, why we're doing this. We could do AI. People are scared to death of AI, this and that. And I guess that's rational. But that human connection that we get to do in the restaurant, to host somebody, hospitality, connect with them, AI will never ever replace that. I don't care, how many robots they build, to come serve you at the table. That's not going to happen. So to me, that's the measurement that I hold close.
I love that, man. That's really good. And what I was gonna say to you was, Riccardi's was my father-in-law's favorite restaurant because he lived near the Villages, and so that was one of his favorite places to go eat at. And then the funny part is, I was like talking, my daughter loves obviously a pizza Bianca, the what you call it, Bianca, your white pizza at Pizzeria Valdiano, but she still remembers when we did her when we did a birthday party at your at Pizzeria Valdiano, where you guys made all the kids could make their own pizzas, and these like the little things, and she still remembers that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah,
amazing. I love those stories.
I ask all my guests to manifest into the universe what they want for themselves and for their business. So, Joe, what do you want to manifest and put into the universe for yourself and for the Hangry Bison?
Oh, man. Oof. Myself and the Hangry Bison. I mean, I don't know if it's manifesting, but I aspire just to be a good father and husband and leader. I think a lot of families, it's flattering, but it's a lot of pressure. Between the three restaurants, we have 200 employees. That's a lot of families that believe in me and believe in what we're doing, that they become part of what we're doing. And many of them are excited, and they've invested their time and their faith in me, that we're growing. And so, like I said, it's flattering that I have that. It adds pressure, but a continued um, discernment on my part to make the right decision for what's next in the business, right? That's my prayer, that I continue to do right by my staff, that every opportunity isn't the right opportunity. Saying no to bad business is good business, and just having the discipline and the confidence to do that. Don't let my ego get in the way, and just continue to do right by people. If I keep doing right by my guests and my staff, things will be fine. I've never been a numbers guy. I've never looked at forecasted potential sales and this is what we could do and this is what the bottom line can look like. It was always driven like, if we just do the right thing by our guests, if I just do the right thing by my staff, it's going to work out. The numbers will work themselves out. I always say that. And if you talk to my director of operations or any of my managers, I mean, that's what I tell them. Just keep doing the right thing. It's going to be fine. And it has been, we've been blessed. Truly, I've been blessed in many ways. And my wife's a tremendous support. It's hard to be married to a restaurateur. It's hard, my managers that are married, their spouses, I have tremendous respect for them, because they spend more time with me than they do with their own kids, right? And that's a lot to ask. The business demands that, unfortunately. And we all signed up for it, so we know what we signed up for. But at the same time, I do value and appreciate them. So just giving me the discernment and the leadership to continue to do those things that will hopefully put my team in a position to be successful. I have a vision for this brand that who knows where we're going to go. But, I sold Valdiano, I sold Ricciardi's. I went all in on this. And I'm going out to Southwest Florida. I didn't want to open a restaurant almost 4 hours away, because I just felt like it. I was bored. It's just, there's a purpose to it and there's a vision behind the brand. So, there are a lot of people counting on me to make it happen. So I hope I'm able to make them proud.
You will. You definitely will. So I always like to also ask, what advice do you have for someone wanting to start something?
So my advice would be, think of the worst case scenario, right? And if the worst case scenario is more than you can bear, then don't do it. That's been me. Like, I thought of what ifs. Like, think of all the what ifs. And it's a hard thing to ponder, right? At the time of me opening Valdiano, I was engaged. I have to fast forward with Ashley. We became engaged, and so it was at a time where I was, I knew without a shadow of a doubt, if God forbid, if we failed and I went under, that I would live. I had my living arrangements, right, and not to speak poorly on living in a trailer, for example, right, but if we had to move from our comfortable apartment to someplace that was less luxurious, I knew in my soul I could live with that as long as Ashley stayed with me, which I knew and I had the confidence she would, you know, and I wouldn't lose her, everything was okay. So the worst possible scenario was, okay, let's go for it. Because if the worst happens, and it could happen, it often happens in the restaurant business, can you survive? Or are you going to be so defeated you can't function? And if you can't stomach that and move forward, then don't do it. Um, you know, so that's, I would say, is to put it simply. I mean, I could probably write a book on advice on what to do and what not to do, but I would start there. Just the what ifs, and picture that worst case scenario, and if you can do it, then go for it. If it's too much to bear, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in, not taking that lead. Nothing to be embarrassed about at all.
I'm going to ask this question just because obviously there's something that you do that I have not, like, you have to have, like you mentioned, you're a restaurateur, but you have all like the background and the knowledge of being like in your family owning the business and stuff like that. What is the separation of being able to, because it's very hard, because like you said, like when you first opened Pizzeria Valdiano, you were there day to day and all that stuff, but there is a certain separation that is needed as a restaurateur of whether you're going to be hands off versus being there. Because like a good example, and I'll say it, like your favorite place to eat, that family is there all the time. Your aunt and your cousins are there all the time. And how do you set, like, so, which makes it very difficult for some places like that when you're so indoctrinated and so immersed into that, to be able to actually be able to expand or grow and do other things. So I'm always kind of curious on like how, like, was there a mental thought process for you where you're like, I need to separate? Because that's like, I've talked to numerous owners and they're like, you're either going to have to be, you're either all in and you live and die in that one location, or you got to be able to separate so that way you can actually expand and grow your business and do other concepts and things like that.
Yeah, it was a conscious decision. It wasn't an easy one. When you have so much on the line, you want to make sure everything's perfect. And when I first opened Valdiano, Ashley used to call herself a restaurant widow jokingly, but literally she was married, but she was home, like she didn't have a husband with her. And that was kind of the joke about it, but it was somewhat true. And I worked 7 days a week. I remember I started off taking like a half a day on a Wednesday off, and, you start stealing a day here and there, but I was so obsessed with the details and making sure everything was perfect. And it's never going to be, but you strive to be, and especially when the business is so young. And I had to get to a place, and Anthony, I didn't get there until probably I was a couple years into the Hangry Bison. Like it took me breaking my leg to slow down. So fast forward from 24 to 40 years old, I was still working like that. Yeah, I started taking Sundays off, but I wasn't taking Saturdays off, and my kids were growing up. And it was a place where I had to come to Jesus with my wife about the kids. Not that she was complaining, it wasn't that. She was coming to me in a place of, like, my daughter Olivia, my oldest, she's 20 now. We I opened in Winter Garden, and we were just busy, man. And I was thank God we were busy. And my wife's just like, man, the kids are, Olivia at the time was 15 when we opened. Michael was 13. And she's like, Joe, if you don't do something, you're going to regret it. The kids, and I have Gianluca, who's 12 now, who was younger, but I always kind of dismissed it when they were little, like, oh, they're not going to remember, they don't care. And it was kind of a moment of just, I only have a couple years left for my daughter, before she goes to college, and my son. And I had to accept that things aren't going to be perfect, that I'm not here to put my to do it and to see we're gonna make mistakes. The customer's gonna get this. It's just a imperfection. I'm gonna have to live with and have to stomach. And that's what I did. And it took a little while at the beginning. And once I got comfortable with it and empowered my staff like a good owner should, and I should have done sooner, I was able to break away and be a business owner. Um, you know, I really felt guilty to my staff because I felt I had an obligation to them to be with them, to be in the trenches with them, to, when they're suffering and dealing with the busyness of the day and the stress of the day, I was there with them. That's what I was used to. And now I'm not there with them. And I felt like I was, I talked about how I felt I was the captain of the team and they're my team. And I felt like as a captain, I'm letting them down because I'm no longer getting dirty with them. But it was a lifestyle change. It was something that I needed for me. I have a friend of mine named John Crossman, who's in real estate and he's done leases for restaurants and stuff, but not a restaurant guy. But he said to me once, he's a few years older than me, but he said, Joe, no one's ever come to him that was older, like a senior person giving advice that said, man, I really wish I worked more, right? I really wish I gave more to my business. I really wish I spent less time with my family. And, and it just kind of resonated with me because I was giving a lot to the business, and my wife, this wonderful supporter, she was my biggest fan, supported me to work a million hours a week if I wanted to. But she just did a wonderful job of just kind of putting in perspective of, not even selfishly for her, for me, this is for you, Joe. And so yeah, coming to terms with that. But again, that's how I learned and I grew. I had to pivot and change things and trust others and give others opportunity and which it's worked out well. I have a director of operations, Eric. He's wonderful. He's an extension of me. So he kind of took my old job, and I still support him to take some pressure off of him so he can continue to have a life with his family. But my old job turned into 2 to 3 jobs now, which I'm grateful for. And we've been, thank God we've continued to be blessed. And my staff doesn't hold it against me that I'm not there doing dishes with them like I did in the old days. I still will, though. I still will. If we're down a dishwasher, I'll jump back there. But it's not, it's not the norm anymore like it used to be. So.
I really want to thank you for that because I've always been intrigued by that thought process and how and what it is and what it takes, because it's got to be really tough to be able to let go, especially when you care about something so much. But it also makes sense, like where you're coming from. So I totally get that. How can people follow you? Where can people follow the Hangry Bison? Like, I'll put it in the show notes, but where can they actually go and enjoy? Tell folks where you're located at, where they can follow you on social media, so that way they can go and enjoy some Hangry Bison for themselves.
Yeah, well, we have 3 locations presently. Winter Park Village was the original. We have a place on Plant Street in Winter Garden, downtown Winter Garden, which is beautiful. So if your fans have never been and visited downtown Winter Garden, it is absolutely worth a trip. Go on a Saturday, Go to the farmer's market, walk the street. You don't even have to eat at the Hangry Bison. Go eat somewhere else. There's some great restaurants and great spots there, but a family day out, it's worth the drive. And we also opened last summer in Lake Mary. So we have a nice spot there in the Colonial Town Park. So those are our 3 locations, and coming soon, maybe January, if things go well, in Bonita Springs, just north of Naples there. So we're going to Southwest Florida and taking the lead. Online, hangrybison.com, the Hangry Bison on Instagram. And see what's going on. Follow us.
Joe, you guys do a really good job, because one of the things that I notice a lot of, and I appreciate it every time I see it, being as someone who has like a brand and marketing and all that stuff, like you have a ton of people that love the Hangry Bison because they all grab the magnet and they put it on their cars. Like there's like I probably see almost every time I drive anywhere a Hangry Bison magnet on a car somewhere, whether it's a parking lot, driving, they all have one. Is that like something that you just said, hey, we're gonna give out magnets to everyone, or like what? Like I mean, it's a great idea, but I just want to tell you that like I see it, and you should appreciate it every time you see it too. Probably that you're like, oh look, they got one of my we got one of my magnets on their car.
Yeah, I love it. I love seeing cars with magnets, and it's a commitment. We give them out with every check. We have a stack of magnets in the restaurant. Every check gets a magnet, and they take them, and and they're not cheap, and we go through a lot, and so it really is a commitment. And I can't take credit for the idea. I got to give credit to my friend John Rivers. When they first opened,
I
they
was gonna
had
say
this,
he's another one that you see a lot of his bumper stickers.
yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan of John. I'm a fan of what they're doing at Four Rivers. I knew John pre Four Rivers when he was a big exec at pharmaceutical. He used to be a customer at Valdiano. We just kind of got to know him there and share ideas, and and then he launched Four Rivers, and that exploded. But yeah, so he had you see the Four Rivers things everywhere, and I kind of had the same idea. Like, man, I love that idea. And like I said, it is a commitment, but we're something as long as I own the restaurant, we're going to give out free magnets. And I don't know if you have, but we have a Get Spotted campaign. So if you have a magnet on your car, like I keep free burger cards with me, free app cards, and I'll be in a public shopping plaza and see a car with a magnet. They got a signed free burger card on their windshield, just thanking them for supporting small business, supporting the Hangry Bison. Man, I've been at red lights and I've some car in front of me, and they're like, "Who's this crazy guy coming up to my window?" And I'm like, "Sorry, this is probably totally illegal, but I hold up the coupon. I own the Hangry Bison. Thank you." Give them a free burger card or free app, and they come in, and so yeah, so we're gonna do a better job on social media. Watch for that. We're gonna have this whole campaign we're gonna roll out called Get Spotted. All my managers have cards. You may have one. If you got a Hangry Bison magnet, you may come out to your car one day shopping somewhere and have a free burger, free appetizer card on your windshield. So
I love that, dude. I love that. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to come chat with me and reconnect with me. I love getting to be able to share your story and just kind of and hear some of the things that I've never known. Even though I know quite a bit of like how the origin happened, but I love being able to kind of share this with you. So, and with the audience. So thank you so much for being on, man. I really appreciate it.
well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on, Anthony. Great to catch up with you. We gotta get together again outside of a Zoom call and really have a proper lunch together. I'll host. Okay.
Okay. I love that idea. I love that idea. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much to Joe Liguori of the Hangry Bison for being on and having a lunch break with me. Definitely make sure to check them out. Plenty of locations. Trust me, you will be happy that you went if you've never been. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to tell your friends. If you want to support my brand, check out Deli Fresh Threads. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.